What's going on, guys? Welcome to Boosted Motorsports. So behind me, we've got this 426 HEMI built engine that we built in-house with MMX components. So this thing is forged, capable of 1500 horsepower. It's got CNC ported heads, a cam, it's got the works. And it also has a 3-liter Whipple supercharger bolted on top of it, all in a single cab Dodge Dakota. So you also notice we got the Hellcat, we've got a Hellcat swap ram there, Viper ACR, we got tons of stuff on this channel. But where we left off last on the videos with this, we got it running, we took it for its first maiden test drive, and like I mentioned, in this video, we're gonna end up getting the AC lines hopefully made. We're gonna go over to a place that has it. I could technically order these fittings, but trying to size all the fittings online and then getting them shipped here and then getting the tool to crimp all the AC lines, I'm just gonna go to a place that has hopefully all this stuff in stock and they can just make up the AC lines, because obviously this engine never came in here and we've got to get from the factory Dodge Dakota AC condenser lines back to the firewall and then over to our AC compressor. And this AC compressor is obviously a HEMI, so all sorts of different stuff. What we were fighting with, or I was fighting with, I should say, is the brake pedal. We put all brand new brakes on this thing. So right now it's got power stop brakes. Maybe in the future we'll go with an upgraded custom brake kit, but this should be plenty of stopping power. It's got 4-wheel disc brakes. There is some companies that offer performance brakes, but as far as build and lead time, we want to get this thing running and driving for now. So we were getting some spongy pedal feel. This thing's running on a Holley Terminator X. The factory computer, which would originally be over where that battery is now relocated to, is no more. Obviously, it's not running this engine. And the factory computer also communicates with, on this, it had rear wheel ABS. So it didn't really have the best ABS. It was kind of, useless in a sense. It would just barely, not really lock up the rear brakes, but it still kind of did. But what I'm having happen is air is getting trapped in here, and because we don't have the factory computer and the system is no longer communicating, I can't use a scan tool to activate the ABS solenoid, and I'm pretty sure there's air stuck in here. I've tried a million different ways to try to bleed it, because there is a proportioning valve in here also, but I can't seem to get it to release whatever air might be trapped in here. So what I told you guys we were going to do on the next video was I'm going to put in a Willwood proportioning valve. So like I said, the ABS is only rear wheel ABS. There's not front wheel ABS on this. So instead we're going to put this Willwood proportioning valve in here. That way we don't have to worry about any air being trapped in the lines. We can get our firm pedal feel and the like, and get that done. Plus it'll get rid of this ugly box as well. So I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna take this out. I'm gonna have to make some custom fittings and the line, so you can see here where it goes. So you can see here where the rear brakes go into the ABS module and then come out of the ABS module, and that's all we're dealing with. So we've got one in, one out, same as the ports on our Willwood proportioning valve. So I'm just gonna have to get those lines made, the flares, and we'll get it all installed. So let's get to it. All right, so first things first, it has these NPT fittings that go to a double flare that you can hopefully see in there. And in the instructions, it says we need 3/8-24 inverted flare fittings. So we need that side to screw into here once those screw into there. So let's go get some fittings. All right, so I got some fittings and just kind of messing around. Obviously I removed the module, and this is the bracket for it. So I'm trying to figure out how I can adapt this bracket without spending a ton of time on this. So what I think I'm gonna do is, I think it's a little excessive to have 3 huge bolts on it. So I think what I'm gonna do is cut this across here. This will leave me a tab, bend the tab up, and then I can put 2 screws through the side of it into there. So that's the plan. See if I can execute it. So my idea is starting to come into concept. So ended up modifying that bracket, chopped off quite a bit of it, and then I got 2 nicely fitted bolts. They're gonna bolt right there, and then I just gotta clean this up, paint it, and then I can mount it back to the vehicle and start getting our lines set up. So it's gonna look pretty clean, and it'll be secure, and it's got enough support that when you're cranking on this knob that nothing's going anywhere. So here's how things are coming. So we've got this mounted, bracket's looking really good, and then just making up this custom line going over to there, because the other one was a bit of a snake. I left the bottom ones. I don't think we're going to completely reline the truck. There's nothing wrong with these ones. They're not rotted or anything. Maybe they don't look as fresh as this brand new one that I'm putting on, but again, if we want to spend more time, money, and energy on this thing. I guess we could replace every single line on it, but perfectly fine working lines there. And where I mounted this was exactly where the original one was as well. So anyways, let me get this bent into shape here, and then I got to put the fitting on it, put the flare on there, and then I can get that in there and we can get back to bleeding these brakes. Okay, so we've got our new line made up. So I'm gonna uncork this reservoir, and then we're gonna put that in there, and then we will get to bleeding. The fronts should still be actually good. It's just the rear that we hopefully will have to bleed, because this port, like, we never lost fluid in here with this little plug. So we'll just have to bleed it essentially from there to the back and see what we got. All right, guys, so I ended up bleeding the brakes, and it still feels not 100%. So I'm going ahead and putting another new master on here and see if that doesn't fix the issue. The other thing I just did too to try to even help it along is bench bled it. So essentially you fill it up with fluid until you let it drain out of the ports, and then you pump this piston in and out and get it to work all the air out, and then you cap it before you install it. So I've even done that, so let's see what happens. All right, guys, so this brake issue has been driving me absolutely mental, to say the least. But I want to take you guys along for the experience with me, because it's just unfortunately the state of being a car guy or the automotive industry in general. I hate to say it, but a lot of these parts are made overseas in the cheapest ways possible, and it doesn't matter which car supplier, your favorite automotive store, they all are made in the same garbage facilities. So we ended up putting the original master cylinder on there, and when I put the proportioning valve on here, I've never really checked it before, but I couldn't even get it to stop the rear brakes or the rear axle. So when I put this in reverse or drive, I couldn't even stop the rear axle. Then I went and got a replacement one. So you can see we've got a master cylinder on here now. I've got another master cylinder over here. I have, 4 master cylinders here right now, just for this one issue. So the original one wouldn't apply adequate pressure to the rear, and we had a spongy pedal. This is a second master now, second new one, not from the original one. And I bench bled it, and then we installed it, and I kept getting air out of the front, like, continuously. We put, I don't even know how many quarts now. I've got 2 over there, I've got 1 over there, and then a bunch that I've thrown out now. We probably put like 5-6 quarts through this thing. And it kept aerating the fluid. So I popped it off of here, and this was wet. So the seal that's in here, I think, was pulling fluid through. So now I'm going to take this one off, and I need to decide which one I want to use. So here's the original one that didn't have pressure to the rear, and the problem is they're all made overseas. I don't know if this one will tell you. Let's see. I don't know. Yeah, there. Made in China. So made in China. We've got this one, which I got from Advanced Auto, which is CarQuest, right? CarQuest's version. What does it say? Made in China. This one, a lot of people wouldn't go this route, but I'm more thinking I want to do this one. You can see here, this casting is just it's a aftermarket casting. This one here is a reman, but it's actually an original Mopar casting. So I want to see if on these aftermarket castings, if that reservoir will fit onto this Mopar one. If that reservoir from the aftermarket master will fit onto this one, this is an actual OEM master. So you can see this is the original OEM casting, and I think I would rather put this on than use the cheap aftermarket one, because this one's just gonna have all new seals. And one of the things too, like, see here, see that steel plate that's held in by the C-clip? All these aftermarket ones, look, plastic. It's all plastic inside. So let's see, actually, I'm kind of curious if the plunger length is the same. It looks similar, but I have a feeling that this is gonna work better than this aftermarket one. Oh, we're shooting fluid everywhere right now. I've had enough. All right, let me see if I can get this bottle on here and see what goes on. All right, so I managed to get the new reservoir on to the OEM reman. So I'm gonna put this on the truck now. Right now, there's nothing on it, and we'll try bleeding it again and see if the reman one with the new reservoir is better than this Chinese casted one. So, but before we do that, I'm actually going to bench bleed it. So let me walk through that procedure with you guys. All right, so bench bleeding. Essentially what we're gonna do is we've got 2 ports, and they were supplied with the reman, even though I bought a kit to be able to do this properly. And you fill it up with fluid, and then what we're gonna do is put these hoses in here, and we are going to cycle this. You can probably grab a screwdriver or whatever's easier, but you wanna keep doing this. This one was like immediate as far as how soon. So see how we don't really have anything coming out of the front one yet? So you can see all the air. So it's gonna be aerating everything out, and essentially what we're doing is we're working all of the air out of everything. So see how the front one isn't really, now it's starting to work. But this kind of goes and shows my point. So this is the rear brakes, and this is the first part of the pedal, is the top. You can see how much fluid it moves, if you can see any air. So see how right there we're moving air? Look at the first part of the pedal here. We're not moving anything out of the front here. So anyways, what we're gonna do is keep running everything until we completely get all the air out of the system. So I'm gonna keep running this, and we'll just keep a visual on everything, make sure this reman unit appears to be working good until there's no more air out of here. All right, so I actually switched out to the kit that I had because these little fittings here were allowing air to come back in. This takes a while, you guys, so you have to be patient with it. So right now, if I press in and I show you guys, this is our front brake. That one's pretty much solid, but the rear brake, so when I press in here, there's no air in the rear, but you can see there's no air in the front, but you can see the rear is still producing quite a bit of air. So I gotta keep working on this rear till we get all the air out of it. Again, working this, you can see there's still a bunch of air in it. So if you connect this to your brake system, you're still gonna be pushing air for a while until all the air gets out of the actual master. All right, guys, this took forever until it finally stopped producing air bubbles when I press on this. This honestly took probably 20-30 minutes of bench bleeding till I can get this to where I can press on this cylinder here and not see air bubbles come out of the master, because you gotta remember this master is completely full of air. So that's pretty crazy. I mean, I'll admit it, you guys. Sometimes you buy a master and they say you don't have to. From now on, I'm gonna do this on every single one. Like I said, I'll be completely transparent with you guys. I've never done this before in installing a master and haven't had any issues, but after watching how much air came out of this, and to the point where now I can press on this and not a single air bubble will come out of the master, which would go to your brake lines, I am definitely a believer on this. So anyways, now this is bled, and like I said, I don't know if I can blame it on the casting or the fact that this is an OEM Mopar one, but I am hoping once we put this on, we are gonna have the most amazing brakes that a Dodge Dakota in 2024 ever has, because I don't think everybody does this step. All right, so I've got the brakes all bled. It's gonna have to be as good as it's gonna be for now. So hopefully that's not an issue. And then I just wanted to take another visual, make sure nothing else was leaking. I did see, you guys can see that, a little bit of red potentially coming out of, again, brand new fittings, brand new lines, brand new rack. Like, just can't catch a break these days with aftermarket parts. And like I said, all this stuff is discontinued from Dodge, so you're kind of left with aftermarket mercy. But anyways, I'll keep an eye on that. I don't know if that was just from like residual, maybe. It doesn't look like it's dripping. Maybe it's, I'm hoping it's residual, but keep an eye on that. So let's put it down. We're gonna load up a new tune from Matt, and we'll see if we can just keep chipping away at this thing. All right, so I just took it for a quick little test drive. I promise you guys didn't miss anything. It wasn't an exciting test drive. I just casually drove at 2 miles an hour up and down the street. But a couple things. I'm gonna rinse this off because this thing is just filthy from sitting around and just the amount of length that it's taken to do this truck. But I'm gonna rinse it off so that it's clean. And then the other thing I was noticing as well is there's not, because this belt is going around so many different things, I guess a couple things. This tensioner here, you can actually get an upgraded tensioner. MMX knows which part number it is, but it's a heavy duty tensioner and it applies more tension to all of these belts. And since it's such a long belt and going around so much, you'll notice, especially with it going around the Whipple, with it going around here, normally the belt would go back there, so you would have a lot more belt wrap around the power steering pulley. But since it's going all the way up here, up high, we have basically just a corner. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's just barely touching our power steering pulley. So what's happening is, because there's not a lot of tension on it, and because we don't have a lot of belt wrap on the power steering pulley, when you go to like turn the wheel, I'm getting a chirp out of the power steering pulley. So I want to see if I can improve on that. So let me go ahead. I'm gonna just give this thing a quick rinse off so that it's not so filthy, because I can barely see out of the windshield right now. And we're just gonna keep running through stuff. As far as the brakes go, they seem to be a lot better, you guys. So obviously we still have to break in all the brakes too, get kind of the pads bedded in as well, but at least I feel like we've got brakes now. Before it was like just mushed to the floor almost. So anyways, the brakes will get better as, like I said, the pads and rotors and everything kind of get bedded in, and pads kind of find themselves on the rotors and in the calipers. But let's rinse this off. All right, so right now we got the Eco Diesel loaded up and we've got the truck on the trailer. We're headed over to a local hose place that says that they make up custom AC lines and stuff like that. So hopefully they have the fittings that we want. We'll go see what they say. We got Bob and Rob. Bob and Rob? There we go. So we got the AC lines. He's got this 90 fitting in there. Rubber hose gonna go through there and up to the firewall. And then we're gonna work on the other lines.
Not yet, hold on.
All right, so here's our one line. We're gonna put a new sensor on it, but we got the sensor, service port, and then this goes all the way back down to the compressor, and then they gotta crimp this part. All right, check it out. These guys did an awesome job. So we've got this here. I didn't click them all in, or we didn't click them in, just in case I gotta reroute anything or take anything off. So I'm gonna put a new sensor, but we've got our sensor here for our high. We've got our service port. They installed this service port here. We're gonna go pick up a new dryer, and then they put all new O-rings on it. And then we've got our low pressure sensor there. And then those wrap around. I gotta fasten some of those lines there, but those are gonna come around. They go across the bottom, and then they both come in here, and then they connect to our AC compressor. So we are all set with the AC lines. And we'll get back, get the new dryer in there, and then we can charge it up and start doing all the wiring for the AC. All right, guys, so those guys did an awesome job. Really happy with how it all turned out. As far as different stuff here, so I did go to O'Reilly's and I picked up a brand new dryer. So I just kind of put this one here from the junkyard just to mock up the lines, but definitely not cheap to get lines like this made, you guys. It is super nice. Like, these lines are really, really good looking. Like I said, they got all the perfect connections, so it looks just like factory. So it's a little bit dark under here, but I just wanted to show you guys. So they ended up making up 3 lines. If you guys are wondering the cost of those 3 lines, it was about $600, but those guys spent pretty much from 8:30 in the morning till noon working on this and just getting it perfect. So right here, again, I've got to fasten this. We got a brand new dryer that's going to go on with the bracket, and I'll get things finalized. I do have to dress in the lines, so just fasten them and secure them, but they're all to length and everything there. And then once I get the new dryer in here, then I can dress in the lines a little bit better. But we've got our service port here. We've got our low pressure switch right there. And then over here, we've got our high pressure switch and then our other service port. And then the lines, we got 2 lines running over here to our condenser, and then over to our compressor. The 2 lines run there, and then they run across the bottom there. It's gonna follow our wire loom that goes across the bottom there and over to that side. If you're wondering why there's kind of stuff out, me and Dennis spent a few hours yesterday mapping out a bunch of stuff. We ended up getting the wires situated and roughed in to the compressor. So there's a pigtail down there that we had to run to the compressor, and then we had to run it to a relay. So the Holley is going to click on, and it's going to tell the compressor when to turn on. It's also going to turn off the AC compressor when you're over about 80% throttle, and over a certain RPM it'll turn off the compressor because you don't want to run the compressor, so it'll disengage the clutch. So you're gonna put the AC button on the dash, and then what will happen is when you push the button on the dash to turn on the AC, it's gonna make sure that the pressure is not too high or the pressure is not too low, which would indicate either a leak or it's over pressurizing, and that will go into the Holley for the AC kick. If this all sounds complicated, it is, but we had to map it all out. So I gotta finish wiring that, but before we can do that, that's why I left all that kind of stuff in shambles, is we go over here. Told you guys I was gonna order a bunch of switches and see which one I liked the best as far as fitment. So I got a variety of switches here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types, and I'm going to see which one I like best in this spot. So let me mess with this and I'll show you which switch I ultimately end up going with on our climate control. All right, so this is the button that I installed. So it's a nice latching button, it'll light up blue. And then essentially what I'm gonna do is, hopefully this all still works, but I'm not really left with much of a choice. The back of the switch is going to protrude out the back, so I have to make a hole through the circuit board. It doesn't look like I'm going to be interfering with anything. If you guys are wondering why I don't just use the button on here, it goes back through here and essentially goes into this chip, and to try to isolate that switch on there, you'd have to run it out and then probably run your own circuit board. So rather than do all that stuff, we're just going to end up putting a latching switch, which will get the job done, and it'll illuminate and it'll be blue. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill out the circuit board there to try to allow for that. Hopefully we don't disable the circuit board at the same time, but I think we should be okay because there's a secondary switch, I guess, for rear AC or something like that, or maybe a defrost, which isn't even used, and that's the only other trace it's going to kind of interrupt. So let's go ahead, drill this out, clearance it for our switch, and we'll see, make sure that all of our controls still work. All right, so just working on a bunch of wiring. Everything is in a million pieces right now. I did get the wiring on the climate control done. So now, I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but I'll show you guys in a minute. The climate control, it's got the little button there that illuminates blue for our AC. And then while I'm working on the wiring, I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the bracketry. I had to get this from the wrecking yard. So this is OEM Mopar part, as you can see there. But I'm gonna clean it up and paint it because it's gonna end up having to hold our dryer. And like I said, I got a new dryer as well. Also getting some wiring over here to our 2 switches. So I kind of wanted to get that in place. I'm not gonna put the new dryer on until the very last minute because we wanna make sure that once we open up the new dryer that it's not just pulling moisture from out in the air. I want to install it, vacuum the system right away, and fill the system. That way our dryer is working as good as possible. But let me clean up these brackets. I'm gonna degrease them, paint them black. That way they can dry while we get the rest of this sorted out. All right, guys, so I got a bunch of the wiring done. So this is gonna end up going through here, come around, and then this one is gonna be tucked nicely underneath the battery tray. Remove the battery just to get to it all, but once we finalize stuff, like I said, I'll dress it in a little bit better and it's gonna look neat and tidy. And yeah, super clean. And then on this side, I buttoned up some of the wiring. Again, I think I've told you guys this a bunch of times, but the bottom of the fuse box, once we finalize all the stuff, which we're almost to the point, then we'll dress in the bottom of the fuse box. There's a plastic cover that goes in the bottom of the fuse box that holds all those wires, and even from the factory, it's a jungle in there, but essentially that cap will go on the bottom. We'll dress it all in nice. What I do have here is a upgraded tensioner from MMX. So essentially what they told me is this is basically a GT500 belt tensioner, and then they make this billet adapter piece to bolt it on here. So you can see here, I think that says Ford. I don't know. I believe that's maybe a Ford stamp. I don't know. The F and the O definitely look like a Ford stamp, but Ford Moco? I don't know. I'm not a Ford guy, but anyways, that's apparently what this is. So we're gonna go ahead and get this in here. So I gotta do a couple things to get access to this, so I gotta remove the fan. I'll probably bring the fan over here for just a minute, that way we can get this beefy tensioner in here. So probably not a whole lot of filming to do on this because you guys won't be able to see much because I'm barely gonna be able to get my hands in there, but we'll get this on and that will fix our tension issue. Because I don't know if I've illustrated this, but right now where we're just running off the corner of the Holley power steering pump, sometimes when you're exercising the steering, you can hear the belt chirping because look at how soft this is. I can literally collapse the tensioner by hand. Like, it is just extremely soft. I shouldn't be able to just push on that easily. So especially when we're going around a supercharger and going around a million things. So that's what we're gonna do by putting on a stronger tensioner. All right, well, this one is significantly taller than the stock one. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'm hoping that this thing actually fits you guys, because you guys already know we barely have any room in here. It is gonna be extremely tight, but we'll find out. I don't know. The Charger Challenger, the stock vehicles, have way more room than this, and we don't. All right, you guys, well, that thing sticks out way too far, as I was nervous about. So if I pull up the fan, there's just no way that thing is gonna clear. So I guess I'm gonna have to take that off, and we're gonna have to come up with some sort of different plan. Maybe I'll try a different belt. Maybe a Gates green belt might grip better, but we're having issues on the side of this pulley here, so let me see what I come up with next. All right, so we can't fit the stronger tensioner, so we're gonna go a different route with this. So just got back from O'Reilly's and I got a bunch of different stuff, and hopefully something is gonna work. So guys over there were pretty cool. They let me just take a bunch of stuff, and then they said whatever doesn't work, just bring it back, we'll refund you. So I ended up getting the green belts, so I got the better belt. One interesting thing is, I don't know if you'll be able to see on the camera, but see the grooves on the actual belt? So these have a very deep and V'd groove. The belt that we had on there, I kind of just got a cheap belt just to size it, but you'll notice, and I don't know if the camera will pick this up, but the grooves, like this thing is very flat, and the actual V portion of it doesn't really have that much depth to it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was contributing to some slippage, as opposed to this. Only problem is they don't have the exact same size belt in one of these green belts. So I've got the same size belt, and this one doesn't even look good. It's got a little chunk out of it. So I got the same size belt in just a standard Gates, but I really want to use one of these green ones. I think it'll look better, and it's supposed to be stronger too. Problem is they're either 1 inch bigger or 1 inch smaller. So I'm gonna see if I can make it work. And then over here I got a bigger idler pulley, so hopefully I can make up the difference on a larger one, but we're gonna see. Let me see what I can get in here, and then I'll show you guys what I end up coming up with. Other thing I ended up picking up was one of these Gates, another idler one, but this is on the groove side, because this engine was originally in here by somebody else, but the previous mechanic nicked this up really badly, as you can see there, and I don't want it chewing into the belt. So you can see there's a nick there, and then all along the edge here. So I don't want it to prematurely wear the belt out, so I'm going to swap it out for a brand new one also while we're in here. Alright, so the green belt does fit with the stock idler. We're in the middle of the tensioner. I'm going to try putting the bigger idler on there and see if we can get a little bit more tension on the factory tensioner. That way, in case the belt stretches, we've got just that much more movement on tensioner. So let's try the bigger idler down there. Okay, so it ended up working out, you guys. We got the larger idler in there. Gives us a bit more tension on our tensioner, and now we've got this belt on here. The grooves are deeper, only same amount of wrap around the corner of this power steering pulley, but I'm hoping since it's a better quality belt, it's probably going to be less susceptible to stretching, and also, like I said, should have more grip on the inside as opposed to just the cheap belt we had on there before. Plus it looks cool, so hopefully that solves that issue with the power steering stuff, but won't know until we fire it up. So let me kind of button some stuff up, get things a little more organized through here, and then we'll move on to the next thing. All right, we're in all kinds of work mode here. So I just was dressing in some of the AC lines a little bit. I got to click them in, and then over here on these ones, there is usually a stud with a nut on it, but because that number 10 fitting is so large,
I can't really get it into there. So what I'm going to do is I just took out the stud, had this little E-Torx bit on the end of it, and then I'm going to find a bolt that's hopefully this long with potentially a smaller head. So let me see if I can get that done. So we've got the bracket painted up, and then the other side of the bracket nicely painted in there. So we've got an airplane apparently. Here's the old accumulator or dryer, then here's the brand new one. So I'm gonna go ahead, I think I went ahead and got all the AC lines buttoned up, but here's the brand new accumulator, nice and shiny, so that'll look nice in the bay. And then if you look over here, I did end up finding a bolt to go on here, and then I tightened our lines into the compressor, so that's all done. We've got our wire going to the clutch, that's all done. I gotta finish dressing some of this in, but that doesn't have to happen right this second. I'm pretty sure I've got most of our wiring done at this point, but obviously until I double check and verify everything is working correctly, I'm just gonna leave I'm gonna wait to button things up until I can verify that stuff. So I also clicked in our hoses because the guys there left them unclicked in case I wanted to reroute them. So I'm pretty happy with most of the routing. Once I get that bracket and the accumulator up in there, then I can finalize some of these wires a little bit. So let me go ahead and get that band clamp bracket around the new one, and then we can pop in our lines, and then I'm going to pull a vacuum on it as soon as we break the seal on that, just so that we don't have to worry. All right, so check it out. This came out super nice, you guys. So the bracket's all nicely, freshly painted. That's all there. And then I've got our new accumulator hooked up, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull a vacuum on it just to make sure that we're good to go there. And then we'll move on to the next thing. So I got my vacuum pump here. We're gonna go ahead, we got the gauges hooked up. We'll pull a vacuum on it. Okay, so truck now has working AC, you guys. So it's pretty cool the way it works. We got our high pressure switch here, our low pressure there. If the system, for whatever reason, develops a leak, the low pressure will keep the compressor from coming on. That works because when you unplug that sensor, the AC and the clutch won't engage. And then the high pressure switch, when the high pressure of the AC system reaches a set pressure, it kicks off the clutch. So everything's working as it should. We got cold AC inside. It's not that hot out right now in Florida, if you can believe that, but it's probably only like 75 today, but definitely is blowing ice cold. So we'll still have to dial in the tune. Obviously with the extra load of the AC compressor, the tune's going to have to offset that. So it's gonna have to bump up the idle RPM whenever the AC is on, and we're also gonna have to make sure the fan goes along with that. Fan kicks on, that way it can keep everything cool. So we'll dial all that in, but at least all the systems are working, and that blue button on the dash works. I don't know if I showed you guys that, but I'll show it to you again. Kind of have a bunch of test wiring out still. If we do this, so I don't know if you guys can hear that click. So that's the AC clutch coming on, and the blue light's indicating that we've got AC running. All right, so we brought the truck back in. I gotta secure all of these AC lines and whatnot over here. So I'm gonna get some P-clamps and figure out how I wanna fasten this in so that it's tucked up above the frame there, or at least in line with the frame. I think the front bumper kind of hangs a little bit lower, but you guys get the idea. The other thing too is, let me grab a light. Something on our power steering keeps getting a little wet. I don't know if you guys can see that right there. See the little drip? I wiped that, and then I mean, nothing too serious, but it is nonetheless some type of leak. So even though we've got two brand new lines on here, I don't know, something's going on with the O-ring. So I think it's the high pressure line, because I can see it's looking a little more wet than the return. So I'm gonna open this up, and then I'll take a look at the O-ring and see maybe if I can identify what the problem is and share with you guys what the result or fix is. All right, so of course I think well, I shouldn't say that. It's gonna be an easy fix, which is the good part. So I ended up capturing the fluid. If you guys have never done this trick, as long as your surfaces are clean, of course, which I double checked, everything is wiped down, and this thing is pretty much eat off the bottom of this thing right now. But you can use a Ziploc bag and just capture the fluid. So it's a brand new power steering fluid, so why not? It is Lucas fluid too, so. And then if you take a look, so it looks good from here, the O-ring. And I don't know if you'll be able to see this with the camera, but this side right here, it looks a little like chewed or something. I don't know how to describe it, but we're gonna pop this guy off and see if we can find another one, because this one's got, I don't know if it's chewed, but it's got like a little bit of excess almost. Or you guys can see that right there, but it's got some little burrs on the edge of it. So we'll see if we can find a nice smooth one to put back on there and pop that back in. All right, so luckily when we bought the rack, it actually came with 2 new O-rings as well as cotter pins for the tie rod ends. So I've actually got the exact size that we need right there. So we'll swap that out. I might take a peek at the return line. I don't think the return line had any issue, but you just never know. See how there's like the little, hopefully you can see that. There's like the little scrap on the edges there. I'm hoping that's all it is. I'm gonna double check the bore too before we put the new one in. Even the return line, even though it's not really under pressure, it still had a weird formation on the side of it. So I'm gonna replace both of them. Okay, so lines are back in, back tight. 2 new O-rings on there, and now we can move on to the next thing. All right, so pretty happy with the result, you guys. So ended up putting riv certs right here. There was these existing holes here, and I tried one riv cert here, but the hole was too far back in order to put the P clamp and have it wrap up so that it was pushing upwards. I didn't fully tighten them down, so this will go up just a little bit more too. These are 3/4 inch, and I just ordered 1 inch just for this larger diameter hose here. I didn't want to clamp it down too much, but it's enough to hold it and essentially see what we've got. And then as you can see there, nothing's going to be hanging down. The steering rack and all that stuff is going to be much lower than the front. So anyways, that's that. And then if you'll notice over here, a box did arrive. So this should be the front and rear upgraded sway bars. So let's go ahead, open that box, and shouldn't be that hard to put them on. But right now we don't have a rear sway bar, and the front one's on there, but this one should be an upgraded one. So let's pop open that box. Okay, so there's the 2 sway bars. This is the front. This thing weighs 1,000,000 pounds, you guys. I bet it's gonna add 40 pounds of the weight of this truck. The back one's pretty skinny. I don't know how I feel about the mounts on it. We'll find out when we go through it. It looks like it mounts to the axle tube with exhaust hangers. I mean, that's pretty cheesy if you ask me, but we'll see how that goes. Front one should be pretty straightforward and mount in the factory location. I'm still confused why the heck they would use exhaust hangers, but I guess we'll find out once we get to it. So anyways, I got to take off the original sway bar, and it should mount in the original spots. It's going to have bigger bushings since it should be thicker, but I think so. Let's go ahead, we'll get this off. I'm guessing we're still going to end up using the original end links, because I don't think it comes with any different ones there, but we should be okay. Let's see how it goes. All right, so old one is off. Here's the new one. New one's definitely a lot thicker, especially through there. Diameter in the middle is similar. I guess that one is beefier, but anyways, I gotta put the bigger bushings on. I gotta lubricate them and then put them on top of the sway bar, and then we can get the sway bar in there. And then it also comes with its own bushings for the end links. All right, well, she is installed in the front, so I mean, I guess it looks better. I'll give it that. Looks better. Definitely heavier. Depends what you're going for. I don't know. It's a truck. I don't know if we're trying to take a corner, but anyways, that's on there. Old one's off. So let's go ahead and I'm gonna rifle through the instructions, see what the heck this weird thing is, and then we'll get it on there. All right, so I got it in here. It's a little bit janky the way it mounts. Like, I don't know if you guys can see this. It goes through the frame like so. So I don't know. We're gonna see though. I don't think it's gonna clear this exhaust. We have a beefy dual 3-inch exhaust, and it was built before obviously the sway bar went on, so I don't know if it's gonna clear. I might try lowering it down just now and see if it clears, but like, I'm not seeing it. This is gonna articulate down as the axle goes up, so we'll see what happens, but it's not looking too promising at the moment. And then as far as the mounting, I was able to utilize the existing sway bar mounts. I guess maybe, I'm guessing probably some Dakota axles do and don't have it. It's the only thing I can think of, but since this has the upgraded 9 1/4 axle, it bolted right up there. So anyways, so I'm gonna set this down and see what we got back here. All right, she's mostly on the ground. I want to double check before I put it all the way down, but let's see what we got. All right, so that is a no bueno situation. So you can see sway bar is directly touching the exhaust. Only other thing I could think of, it's not ideal, but I really don't like the sway bar. Look at like those end links, the angle that they're on. So that's the way they say to do it. But the only other thing I could think of is to put, they give you 2 different length of end links essentially, which is just a really long single bolt. is to put the longer ones on there. It might roll that sway bar down further and might give us some clearance. So that's the only other thing we can maybe try before we completely write it off. Let me see how it's clearing the mount over there on the exhaust side too. Let's see what we got for clearance there. So surprisingly, it looks like we got quite a bit of clearance on the mount, just not the way that bar is rotated. So let me see if I can't mess with it and get something to work here. All right, so we're gonna try one more time. We've got these longer end links in here, although might not be. Ooh, that sounded pretty spicy. Woo! Even though we've got longer end links in here, and might not be the ideal geometry, it might end up rolling this down so that it potentially clears here. We will have to see. So either that, or the only other option would be to rework the exhaust. So maybe bring at least this pipe more this way and down so it wouldn't match perfectly, or chop them, rework them, all that fun stuff. But the way the exhaust is configured right now, let's see how it fits going down again. Ooh, that is too close for comfort in my opinion, but it isn't touching at the moment. But I also wouldn't be surprised if it hits as it goes up. That is not ideal, that's for sure. I think to be safe, I'm probably just going to take it off for now. If we want to rework the exhaust to fit it later, I think that's gonna have to be another project. So that's pretty much the only thing we could do is rework the exhaust. I don't think we want to rework the exhaust. Sway bar is not absolutely crucial. It's not like we're road coursing this thing, but yeah, that's a little too close. All right, so sway bar is off, and just another little project, the little LED license plate light in the back. I'm gonna take the original harness. This was the two lights that went around the license plate factory. We only have one, so I'm gonna modify this harness so that this is plug and play, and then it will have a running light in front of the license plate. All right, there we go. Harness is made up, so we can go ahead and put this on and plug it in, and then we should have a running light for the license plate. Okay, so got our license plate light wired up and working. Running lights are on with it as well, so one more thing done. So what I might do is, I actually, just because this Hellcat engine is so jammed in here, and even though same Gen 3 Hemi platform, when I built this, Holley didn't have the rear sump pan kit that they now have. So this actually has a Hellcat pan on it, and because I did that, I wasn't actually able to run a front sway bar at the time. There was just too much congestion through there. So this doesn't have a front sway bar or rear sway bar, but if you guys know drag setups, a lot of vehicles don't even use sway bars. So even my Hellcat, my 1,000 wheel horsepower Hellcat, I don't have sway bars on it either. I think I might still have the original RT rear sway bar from this, which I think the way it mounts might actually work. So maybe if we get some time, or if the owner wants, we could potentially try that if I can find it somewhere. See if the OEM sway bar fits any better than the Beltec one, but that Beltec one looked really janky to me, and it didn't fit. So that's the situation with that. As far as other things, I'm waiting on the tuner to finally get this thing dialed in. We're trying to get this dialed in as much as possible, but right now I'm kind of at his mercy. So truck is pretty much ready to go, but just trying to get the tune dialed in on the Holley, and then we can wrap things up that way. All right, so I promise we will be getting more test driving in. Now that we've got some of the small issues, the power steering pulley should be good that way, and then that tiny little leak. We've got AC working. Everything works good on the AC right now, so be testing that out more. But like I said, we got to get the tune dialed in a little bit. What did show up also is we sent out the seat belts to Safety Restore. So this should complement the rest of the truck pretty nicely. So we've got black with the red stripe. So we've got black with red stripe seat belts. So we'll get those in there, and then I can put the trim that goes behind the seat paneling. All that can get in there, and just keep plugging away on this. So other thing too is I did pick up a catch can, so we got quite a bit of room here for a catch can, so probably going to get the PCV valve from there to here. plumb into catch can on the next episode. And then one other thing that I think I'm going to revise on the setup is our coolant overflow tank. So the reservoir that connects to the radiator, right now we've got a huge capacity radiator with a huge engine. I don't think this has enough volume to keep up with it. I could be wrong, but just when it's sitting here idling, sometimes it'll end up filling up that reservoir and spilling over. So what I think I'm gonna try to do is we got tons of room over here, is put a larger capacity tank here. So I got a few on their way, see if I like any of them. I do like how clean the setup is, but I don't think I have any more room to put a bigger version of that in here. It's already pretty congested. So I'm going to see about putting a larger capacity tank that can allow it to expand and contract. You're supposed to do about 12% of your overall cooling system. So based on the rough calculations that I did on that, this needs to be about 1.5 liters of coolant. So about 0.36 of a gallon is about 12% of the cooling capacity. So I need a bigger tank. I don't think this one, by the time you calculate in the air, because the straw comes up to probably a couple inches from the top, so I don't think it has quite the amount of volume that we need. So yeah, I mean, this is a completely custom one-off build, so I don't know of anybody that's put a 426 with a 3-liter Whipple in a Dodge Dakota before. So some stuff, there can be a little bit of growing pains, but that's part of it. We'll just dial it in as we go. So if you guys are liking this series, give it a thumbs up. Go head over to shopboosted.com. If you guys are working on any project, I offer consultations. Doesn't matter if it's mild to wild, if it's just you trying to figure out some of the setup stuff that you want to do, whether it's a bolt-on vehicle, whatever. We got consultations, I got parts, we've got merch, all sorts of stuff. It's what helps support the channel and allow us to do a bunch of crazy builds for you guys. So head over to shopboosted.com, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and check out the other videos on how we got to this point. Some of the other projects also, the Hellcat, and there's a bunch more on the channel. So thanks for watching. Catch you guys in the next video.